Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Muskat, and I'm honored to serve as chair of UJA Women's Philanthropy for the 2020 annual campaign alongside my wonderful vice chair, Perri Kirshenblatt. I hope you and your families are well during this very challenging time and starting to enjoy the nicer weather we've been seeing this week. Thank you for joining us for this special Women's Philanthropy Aura event as part of the new Health and Wellness series. As I look around the screen, it's so wonderful to see over 150 of you who have joined us this evening. Before we begin our program, I would like to share our appreciation for our Women's Philanthropy sponsor, BMO, for their continued support. BMO has been a partner of UJA spanning many years, and their dedication to helping the most vulnerable in our community is inspiring. Thank you. Also, I would like to share my personal gratitude for being able to spend time with you tonight as a representative of an organization whose mandate is to help the most vulnerable and ensure the continuity of Jewish life, both in Toronto and in Israel. Being a part of UJA and the Women's Philanthropy Division is invigorating and inspiring. I would like to take this unique opportunity to give you a brief update of what is happening in our community during this tumultuous time. As you all know, due to the COVID-19 crisis, our social service agencies are overwhelmed with an unprecedented number of requests for assistance from those already vulnerable as well as the newly vulnerable. In addition, our institutions of Jewish living such as schools, camps, and JCCs are facing existential threats due to massive revenue loss. As Jews, defined by our values of compassion, mutual responsibility, and tikkun olam, we don't sit on the sidelines and wait. We act, and we support those who rely on our community's resources for stability, well-being, and connection to Jewish life however we can. And that is exactly why UJA has launched the Emergency Campaign for Community Resilience to support the huge increase in community needs stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic. Recently, UJA CEO Adam Minsky shared some sobering statistics showcasing that our community is facing a crisis that we have never before encountered and just a few months ago could never have before imagined. The grave risks stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic include that our community's agencies and resources will be overwhelmed by the needs of the Jewish vulnerable. With at least 44% of Canadian households hit by job loss or reduced working hours, we know that the same is happening within our very own community. Roughly half of all Jewish households in our city are suffering. The 1 in 8 Jews who struggled with poverty before the pandemic are now in even greater need. We cannot manage the surging needs with the existing resources that we have. Since the pandemic began, we've seen an 80% increase in requests for help from Jewish families in financial crisis, 30% increased requests for kosher meals on wheels, 40% increase in Jewish seniors seeking help, and 85% increase in Jews requesting addiction counseling. Overall, we estimate 25,000 more community members will need support of UJA's network of social service agencies beyond the usual caseload. As dedicated leaders, the future of our community hinges on the choices we make now. We have been so inspired by the women throughout our community who have stepped up as leaders in this moment of crisis. By giving so generously of their time and funds to help those who have been hit hardest by the COVID-19 crisis, Jewish women across our city are making a real difference in the lives of so many. It gives us tremendous confidence about the future of our community. Tomorrow morning, we will share a link to a short video that explains how UJA and our partner agencies are responding to current challenges. If you haven't seen it, please take the time to watch. It is very powerful and explains better than we ever could how our community is responding to those most in need. We really appreciate you being a vital part of UJA. As female leaders, you will shape our future, and we need you now more than ever. I would like to now introduce our Aura chairs, Monique Isaacson and Joy Sterling.
Thank you, Melissa, for sharing that important update. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first in the Women's Philanthropy Health and Wellness series. we have been overwhelmed with the response of people sharing their enthusiasm for this new program. Joy and I would like to thank our amazing and dedicated committee, Cheryl Newberg, Shauna Orzik, Sheila Rother, and Devra Wasser, for working so hard and tirelessly for UJA Women's Philanthropy and putting together this amazing webinar.
Absolutely, Monique. We are stronger together, and we thank you so much for your time and talent. We would also like to thank tonight's moderator, Nicole Inwentash, and our special guests, Marsha Fenwick and Caroline Sabbah. Moderator Nicole Inwentash is a registered holistic nutritionist at Schulman Weight Loss Clinic. After receiving her Bachelor of Arts degree from Western University and then completing a postgraduate degree in international marketing from Humber College, Nicole pursued her passion for nutrition by earning her diploma in applied holistic nutrition at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, where she graduated with first-class honors. Nicole is best known for her positive attitude, enthusiasm, and passion for nutrition and health. She has very positive energy and is infectious to those around her, and caring attitude is reflected in her dedication and support that she gives to her clients. Nicole does not take a one-size-fits-all approach, and she truly believes that emotional concerns and lifestyle habits play a significant role in affecting a healthy lifestyle. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you, Joy, for that beautiful introduction. It is my pleasure to moderate this evening's webinar. I'm very excited. I think it's amazing that both the speakers and myself are all graduates from the Institute of Holistic Nutrition. As a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the seminar this evening, please feel free to put them in our chat box and I will be checking it regularly. Now let's introduce tonight's guest speakers. The first speaker I'm going to introduce is Marsha Fenwick. Marsha is not your typical nutritionist. Marsha began her 20-year career in healthcare as a registered respiratory therapist caring for prematurely born children in the neonatal intensive care unit and adult intensive care at Women's College Hospital and other Toronto downtown teaching hospitals. She continued her studies and earned her certifications as a registered nutritional consultant practitioner, certified nutritional practitioner, and registered orthomolecular health practitioner. She is certified in first-line therapy, functional and clinical nutrition, and genetic testing related to nutrition. She has a private nutrition practice in North York where she sees a wide range of clients. Marsha is also working in collaboration with medical practices, Back in Action Health Clinic, and Pinewood Natural Health Center. Marsha will be sharing tips, strategies, and takeaways related to an anti-inflammatory diet. To learn more, you can visit her website at marshafenwicknutrition.com.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Nicole, for the warm introduction, and thank you all for taking the time out tonight for yourselves. I'm so excited and honored to be presenting with my fellow colleague, Caroline, about the power of nutrition. As a holistic nutritionist and certified cancer coach for over 9 years, and having worked in acute respiratory care for over 20 years, I have seen firsthand that what we eat has a direct impact on our health, well-being, and happiness. Working with clients with a wide variety of health concerns, I feel fortunate to have witnessed significant shifts in their lives and health by educating and empowering others that what we put at the end of our forks and spoons can be the single yet most powerful lifestyle change. I used to be someone who lived off of chocolate bars, chocolate milk, double bubble, coffee, and sugary treats while working in the hospital and doing shift work as a therapist. I started experiencing poor energy and sleep, sugar cravings, and digestive distress by the age of 40. I was so addicted that one day my husband came home and bought me this chocolate bar. Can everyone see? Well, it says, "Oh, Marsha." Well, I am not a believer in restricting foods, but rather in learning how to upgrade your favorite foods without feeling deprived. For those of you who know me, I always have some dark chocolate in my fridge, as well as my homemade treats in my freezer that I will be sharing as a treat with you at the end. There has been so much confusion, misinformation, and nutrition noise over the years from marketing, from the internet, and other misleading sources. However, in these times of pandemic, and for our daily lives and well-being, the role of nutrition and supporting our immune system is vital. It's time to connect the dots between what we eat and how we feel. So, what is the connection between nutrition, inflammation, and your health? Research has shown that chronic inflammation is associated with many illnesses and health concerns, such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, neurodegenerative health, digestive orders, and some cancers, which are increasing at a dramatic rate. However, there is good news. We know that lifestyle changes such as exercise, sleep, stress reduction, and nutrition can influence this trajectory. And so what can we do about it? This starts by reframing food as calories to food as fuel and medicine. We already know to reduce or avoid the obvious inflammatory foods, such as processed flours, wheat, sugars, and inflammatory oils. Now, we must refocus on what we need to add into our diet and how to upgrade our fuel to optimize our health. This is the new paradigm and mindset shift. Okay, so I want to encourage you to build your meals around health, as I have been hearing how so many of you have been overeating, overdrinking, and stress eating, and I do get it. So if you don't have a pen and paper ready yet, then go get it now, because I have 10 great tips and takeaways with lots of information. And as always, I have to mention, this is not intended as medical advice, as it needs to be personalized accordingly. Number 1, let's start with focusing on whole, real foods, which means foods that are natural, which come from farms and fields and not from factories. By that, I'm referring to food quality, as these whole, real foods contain nutrients such as fiber, vitamin, minerals, protein, and fat to keep us satisfied, satiated, and energetic. Some examples: a piece of fruit, vegetable, lentils, beans, and protein. Number 2, many people are struggling with weight gain, low energy, digestive distress, and bloating. In order to help alleviate some of these feelings, I recommend choosing low carbohydrate and low glycemic food to help stabilize blood sugar and insulin levels, which is a big driver of inflammation. Some examples of these kind of low carb and low glycemic foods are leafy greens, berries, beans, and legumes. And many of my clients get excited to learn about what I call healthier carb substitutes. For example, have you heard of black bean pasta, lentil pasta, hearts of palm pasta, cauliflower rice? And I also love using a spiralizer to make zoodles and vegetable noodles. And there's all kinds of different wraps too. There's so many great options out there, and I hope you'll think about them to check them out. Number 3, how many of you have heard the term eat the rainbow? Well, by combining a colorful combination of fruits and vegetables, we can benefit from what's called the synergistic effect of these foods, which contain vitamin, minerals, and antioxidants that promote good health. Science shows there isn't just one food or a single nutrient that can be measured to eat, but rather choosing food as a whole. So forget about apple and orange juice and grab your apple and orange, or think about building a smoothie or a colorful quinoa or grain bowl. When you grab these foods, you're automatically grabbing a combination and eating the rainbow. On to number 4. Some vegetables that I often recommend to my clients are cruciferous vegetables, such as cauliflower, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, which are rich in sulforaphane, which is just a fancy word for good quality antioxidants. Research shows that by eating a higher intake of these foods, these may be associated with a decreased risk of certain cancers, as they are very nutrient dense. If you find that these vegetables may be hard to digest, think about making colorful trays of grilled vegetables, steaming or sauteing, as these will help you to digest these cruciferous vegetables. Number 5, how many times a week do we hear, I don't know what to make for dinner and I need new recipes? Although I am not a fancy cook, I have found that incorporating fresh herbs and spices can be a game changer. For many dishes can have health benefits containing garlic, ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, which are just a few that are researched with health promoting compounds. I find by blending some of these spices and herbs with healthy oils, you can start to reduce and remove those bottled salad dressing, sauces, and marinades, and learn to retrain your taste buds. Some great examples for these herbs and spices are protein dishes such as fish, chicken, tofu, or putting them in your smoothies, vegetables, and soups. Let's move to number 6. Consider adding fermented foods, which many of you may be hearing about and are very beneficial and contain beneficial probiotics. They also help to restore our gut and are very important to help support our immune system. Recent studies have suggested that our intestinal microbiome plays an important role in influencing risks of several chronic diseases, including irritable bowel, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Now we know that even diet plays a significant role in shaping the microbiome, as in within 24 hours of changing your diet, there can be changes. Some examples of fermented foods are sauerkraut, pickles, yogurt, kefir, and kimchi. And now my new favorite is sourdough bread. My colleague Caroline will be elaborating further on this topic. Number 7, fats are a fascinating topic, and for so long we have been told to eat low fat or to fear fat. However, focusing on healthy fats and choosing the right oils is an important part of our daily cooking. We should be avoiding inflammatory processed vegetable oils such as corn, canola, and sunflower, and restocking our pantry with avocado, walnut, or coconut oil for high heat and extra virgin olive oil for salad and lower heats. Include some healthy plant-based fats such as avocado, which I love, and some great snacks containing nuts and seeds with maybe a little bit chocolate chips are also great, including flax seeds, chia seeds, and hemp hearts, as all these fats are vital for our hormones, our brain health, and for keeping us satiated. Number 8, I do love eating the Mediterranean diet, which is a foundation of plant-based foods, as well as containing healthy fish, which I highly recommend as a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. I love to teach the acronym SMASH. This stands for sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, and herring, which are great healthy choices. You may not be able to eat all of these fish in public, as they can be a little bit smelly, but they sure are good for you. Number 9, a really hot topic that I'm sure you have been hearing a lot about is plant-based eating, which I do endorse. Remember, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can just start gradually by adding to your diet and reducing meat or dairy. Some great examples are organic tofu, tempeh, lentils, and beans. And some of my new go-tos, which many individuals may not know about, are buckwheat, lupini beans, or making a farro salad, which I learned to love after a visit in Italy. With plant-based eating, I do caution to pay attention to reading labels when buying processed plant-based foods, as many of these products may not be what they seem. So as I mentioned before, choose and read labels and aim for whole foods. And number 10, hang in there, guys. It's important to mention that hydration is so often overlooked on a day-to-day basis. Its role is to regulate body temperature, flush out toxins, and assist with our daily bowels. Aside from water, some great suggestions are green tea, white tea, and matcha tea, which contain antioxidants. Herbal teas and vegetable or bone broths are also great ways to hydrate. My personal favorite is making a large jug of water with my favorite mint and cucumber, keeping it beside me as my new best friend, and aiming for 2 to 3 liters per day if possible. Finally, a powerful nutrition strategy that you may be hearing about is called intermittent fasting. This is a way of eating which includes periods of feeding and periods of fasting. Initially, intermittent fasting was intended for weight loss due to its caloric restriction. However, there is great research showing improvement in health markers related to reducing inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, and blood sugar management of type 2 diabetes, as well as ongoing research related to neurodegenerative health and some cancers. There are many different approaches to intermittent fasting, such as time-restricted eating, alternate day fasting, prolonged fasting, and extended fasts. I often recommend to clients to start by avoiding eating after dinner and extending their fast accordingly to the next meal within a 10 to 12 hour window. Really, we just need to stop nushing and snacking a little bit and focusing on proper meals, whether it's 2 or 3. Intermittent fasting does need to be approached carefully and individually with an understanding of what to eat within both windows of feeding and fasting. Intermittent fasting is not for everyone and does need to be discussed with a nutrition or health professional. So, how do we implement and put some of these strategies and recommendation into practice? I believe in a gradual approach. We are all at different stages, ages, and phases of our lives. The key to implementation and improving our health is a personalized nutrition plan. One that you can enjoy, one that you can live with, and one that you can sustain as a lifestyle. Wherever you are in your nutrition journey, it's never too late to make changes. I hope I have inspired you tonight to try one new vegetable, one new type of fish, maybe even sardines, and one meatless Monday, and then see how you feel. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. And please don't wait till next Monday, the next month, and certainly not until after the pandemic is over, rather starting with your next meal. So I want to ask you all a final question before I pass it over to Caroline. If I were sitting here with you 1 year from now, what would have to change for you to be happy with your health, your weight, and your well-being? I am offering a complimentary 20-minute consultation for the first 20 people who email me before midnight tonight to help set you up for success and improved health. Also, feel free to head over to my website and check out some of my favorite sweet recipe treats. Now, what do you have to lose?
Thank you, Marsha. That was very educational. Now I'm going to introduce our second speaker, Caroline Sabbah. Caroline is a clinical nutritionist and mindset coach with training in functional medicine, functional nutrition, functional genomics, and human potential coaching. Her clinical practice focuses mostly on gut health, brain health, mainly anxiety, mood and health optimization with genetics. She also coaches clients in life transformation and mindset. She sees clients both online and at Vitality MD and Enviromed clinics in Toronto. Caroline is truly passionate about her mission to facilitate change and help women flourish, combining all her modalities, connecting mind, body, and lifestyle. Caroline will be sharing some insights on the gut-brain connection, particularly the role of the microbiome and the vagus nerve in chronic inflammation, empowering with some action steps that you can start implementing right away. To learn more, you can visit her website at thewholefoodapothecary.com.
Well, thank you, Marsha. Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to speak tonight at this wonderful Women's Philanthropy Oral event. I'm really looking forward to sharing some insights on the gut-brain connection, and more particularly on the role of the microbiome and the vagus nerve in chronic inflammation. Gut health and brain health hold a really special place in my heart, as I came into nutrition from a career as a litigator, not with one autoimmune disease, but with two. I'm a firsthand example of the impact of nutrition on your health. So I will start off tonight by introducing you to the vagus nerve. It is still quite unknown, and yet it plays such an important role in our health. Then we'll jump into the world of the gut and the microbiome, and we'll finally tie it all in with the brain-gut axis. I'll end my talk with some actionable steps you can start implementing right away. So you're probably all familiar with the branches of the autonomous nervous system. They're commonly referred to as the fight or flight or the rest and digest response. So why am I bringing these up? Because the vast majority of the rest and digest system runs through a specific pair of nerves in the body, the vagus nerve. This is the only nerve that originates from the brainstem, and it runs all through your entire body. It's responsible for not only regulating your heart, your lungs, the muscle of your throat and your airways, but also your liver and your stomach and your gallbladder, your spleen, your kidney, your intestines. It is also one of the links between the brain and the gut in the brain-gut axis. It is the most important communication pathway regarding digestion, nutrient status, and communication with your microbiome. And yet we know so little about the vagus nerve. But this is starting to change after a 2018 study that was published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine on the benefits of vagus nerve on your health. What I think is even more interesting is that chronic inflammation is the most common and obvious sign of an ineffective signaling from the vagus nerve. While it's not the root cause of inflammation, it's an important factor to take into consideration to reduce the inflammatory signals. The gut also often plays an important role in inflammation, if not that of being the actual root cause in many instances. Hence the quote, "All diseases begin in the gut." Since many of our immune and inflammatory cells are housed in the gut. So, which is why tonight I'm going to venture and suggest that wouldn't there be real potential and benefits in managing inflammation by addressing not only the gut, the microbiome, but also the vagus nerve? In functional medicine, we're taught to treat the body as a whole, that everything is interconnected, and that the very center of that connection is the gut. So think of it this way. Your gastrointestinal tract is like the hole in a donut. It's your body's connection to the outside world. It has a role of protection. Protection, it's your primary line of defense from infection, viruses, and bacteria. It has a role of digestion. It's where digestion happens. It has a role of absorption. Your gut needs to be able to properly absorb those nutrients and allow them to make their way into your cells. And it also has a role of elimination. And waste removal is a very important part of health. So as much as a nutritionist, as I would love to speak to you about digestion and the importance to chew your food and to eat mindfully in a relaxed environment for optimal digestion, there's sadly not enough time. But what I do want to bring up though, is that the vagus nerve is responsible for digestive sequencing, motility, and signaling to your digestive organs to release the digestive juices necessary for digestion. And that a dysfunctional digestive rhythm is directly correlated to vagus nerve dysfunction. This is another reason why, I'm sorry guys. Am I still muted? No, I just had this. So this is what happens, right? Because we're not live, I thought I was muted. Okay, so let's continue. I'm so sorry about this. So this is another reason why I think we should start looking into the vagus nerve more closely. Now let's look at the world of the microbiome. This is where I tell you that you have more bacteria than human cells in your entire body, that you are more bacteria than you are you, that we're sharing our body with 100 trillion bacteria and well over 500 bacterial species compared to 40 to 60 trillion human cells. Some even say that there's 10 times more bacterial cells living in and on us than there are human cells in our body. And interestingly, there are 150 times as many genes in your microbiome than there are in the human genome. It has been proven that the composition of your microbiome has a direct relationship to our diet and health as we age. We are barely starting to understand the pivotal role of the microbiome on our gastrointestinal function, our metabolism, our brain function, our nervous system, and our immune system. They work very much like an organ and act as a major part of your immune system. They play an important role in inflammation. They protect us from infectious diseases, influence effects of drugs and medication on our body. They affect whether we're a bit fluffier or thinner. They affect our nutritional status and overall health, and they contribute to our rate of aging. We live in symbiosis with these bacteria community, and when they become out of balance between the good and the bad, that's where disease can result. This community of bacteria, this microbiome, works in synergy with our human cells. They live in your digestive tract, but also on your skin and in your nose and eyes and lungs and blood and mouth. Although we are still unclear about how the vagus nerve communicates with the microbiome, there is now research that show that many of the effects of the gut microbiota on brain function is highly dependent on vagus nerve activation. With respect to inflammation, it's proposed that the vagus nerve sends anti-inflammatory signals to your immune cells, ensuring that the system keeps the brakes on inflammation, Information is then relayed from the gut bacteria to the cells in the digestive tract, which then sends the signals to the central nervous system via the vagus nerve. So you can see how the vagus nerve plays a central role in communication between different parts in our body. Bacteria in your microbiome also produce byproducts, and some are really important, and those are called short-chain fatty acids. The reason I'm mentioning them tonight is because they are important in reducing the amount of inflammation in the gut, but also throughout the body. Butyrate is the most researched one that seems to be lacking in those who have high levels of inflammation. So balancing the bacterial population in your gut is one of the major steps that you can take to both ensure that your gut and vagus nerve signaling are functioning optimally. So are you starting to see how the gut microbiota together with the vagus nerve play a really important role in inflammation? So here's the thing, what causes disruption to our microbiome? Our microbiome is influenced by the climate we live in, medication we take, whether we're born by C-section, breastfed or not, stress levels you're under, and most importantly, how you manage your stress, mental and physical. Trauma you may have gone through, infections, overuse of antibiotics and chemicals we're exposed to, because unfortunately we are now exposed to over 80,000 different types of chemicals. Excessive alcohol intake, lifestyle, and last but not least, dietary factors. The bacteria in your gut, they thrive on what you feed them. It's crucial not to feed the bad bacteria as they produce harmful toxins. And feeding the bad bacteria results in crowding out the good bacteria and moving us from symbiosis, balance, into what we call dysbiosis, unbalance. And yes, refined sugars, refined carbs, and processed foods, as well as low dietary intake of fiber, are key factors responsible for dysbiosis in the gut, which can result in local or systemic inflammation. A low intake of dietary fiber will impact the diversity of your microbiome and the production of short-chain fatty acids. And then there's also other dietary factors, which I don't have the time to dive into, but those are known as food sensitivities or food intolerances. You may have heard of gluten sensitivity or dairy. So these would be food also that could play a role. So now let's tie it all together. The microbiota has emerged as a key player in the control of the brain-gut axis in the recent years. The complex, multifaceted system of the gut-brain communication not only ensures proper maintenance and coordination of your gastrointestinal function, but it also supports behavior and physical processes, also permitting feedback from the gut to exert profound effects on mood, behavior, and higher cognitive function. Diet is the most important modifying factor in this axis. The roots of communication between the microbiome and the brains are now slowly being discovered. And one of those is the vagus nerve. So the gut is often referred to as the second brain. And more researchers agree that you cannot deal with one without dealing with the other. In fact, the ratio of messages between the brain and the gut are 1 from the brain to the gut and 9 from the gut to the brain. So clearly the gut is in charge. Did you know that different bacteria in your gut produce neurochemicals such as dopamine and GABA and serotonin? In fact, up to your 90% of your serotonin, your feel-good hormone, is actually produced in your gut. That's why the main goal is, of course, adding more good bacteria, because they end up promoting the gut-brain axis, which in turn improve your vagal tone. These benefits affect our brain and our behavior. What's really empowering to know, and I'm a first example of that, is that you can improve your microbiome and you can activate your vagus nerve to support your gut and brain health. So if we look at the foods to promote, by now you all understand the benefits of a plant-based diet, thanks to my colleague Marsha. I'm only going to chime in just a few. Probiotics, as you know, they're quite important for the gut microbiome. And Marsha just mentioned the fermented foods. High fiber foods are another one, because they're good for your good bacteria, but also the fibers that you will find, the prebiotic fibers that you will find in certain vegetables, such as Jerusalem artichokes and leeks and onions, and so many more, are a great source of food for your probiotics. Polyphenol-rich foods, they help rebuild lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. So cacao, green tea, olive oil, they all contain polyphenols. Polyphenols increase healthy gut bacteria, and they may actually improve cognition. When looking to increase specifically the vagus nerve function, you would look at food rich in choline. So choline-rich foods would be something like egg yolks. Those are precursors to ACH, which is an anti-inflammatory messenger, as well as acetylcholine, which is a major neurotransmitter used by the vagus nerve. All right, so how would you activate your vagus nerve? What I love about this is that they're actually quite simple things that you can start implementing right away. There is what we call abdominal breathing or box breathing. You can look them up, they're everywhere. You can Google it and you'll see it everywhere. There's even TED Talks about the benefits of them. Cold exposure. So the best thing would be to splash cold water on your face, or to end your shower with a few seconds with cold water. And then you can slowly increase to more time where you're exposed to cold water. And that will activate your vagus nerve. Gargling. Gargling will stimulate the larynx and the pharynx. You can do this after brushing your teeth. Singing and humming, same thing. Humming, you find a lot when you're doing yoga with the right? And that also activates the vagus nerve. Mindfulness, meditation, anything that brings your body back into a rest and digest mode. Laughter. Intermittent fasting is great also because it improves your heart rate variability, but it also gives your vagus nerve a nice little vacation. Daily movement, sunlight exposure, not only is it good for vitamin D and immune function, but it is also great for your circadian rhythm. So your circadian rhythm is your wake and sleep cycle. And why I'm mentioning this is because the time where your vagus nerve exercises to become stronger is in deep sleep. And by having a good circadian rhythm, you have a better chance of having deep sleep. Sleep is also extremely important for brain health because that's the time where your brain, think of it this way, it's a time where the cleaning crew comes in and kind of gets rid of all the debris, the lymphatic system. So sleep is extremely important for brain health. And one last trick for sleep, there's some research that shows to help your heart rate variability, sleeping on your right side could be quite helpful. I hope that this talk has inspired you to support your microbiome and vagus nerve to optimize your health. Thank you for your attention, and I won't keep you longer because I'm sure some of you have some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. That was equally as impressive, very, very knowledgeable. So we're going to go through the question and answer period now. So some people did submit some questions in advance, and I do see as I'm reading the chat that you guys have been submitting questions. We're going to try our best to get through as many as we can, but we may not have enough time. I do want to mention, while we realize that some of the questions may be specifically related to you, we will do our best to answer them, but it will be done in more of a generalized context. Just so everyone knows that. Okay, so we're going to go through the questions now. We'll start with question number 1. So the first question that was submitted is, what is the benefit of a plant-based diet, and how does someone begin to incorporate more plant-based foods into their diet? So maybe Marsha, because you briefly mentioned plant-based foods, you could elaborate on that question.
Sure, thank you. Regarding a health-based plant-based diet, it is recommended as for many different reasons and mainly many health benefits. There's lots of research that's come out related to reducing, number one, cardiovascular disease, helping to reduce diabetes, as well as even helping with weight management. And a lot of the reason behind plant-based eating is the value of what is in it. So as I had mentioned, containing whole food, plant-based foods contain vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and specifically fiber. So these are the compounds within these foods that provide the health benefits to so many different health concerns. So there is a lot of science behind it, and there is a lot of merit for overall health and for many different areas. Regarding implementation, again, it's a great question. And as I mentioned, we want to focus on choosing whole food, plant-based foods, being really careful. I know there's a lot of burgers out there and processed plant-based foods. So I really like to bring that to everyone's attention because I see that as an area of confusion. But if you want to introduce it in a whole foods way, again, introducing, for example, in your breakfast, adding in some vegetables. If you're having, a smoothie or an omelet, so more vegetables, again, a little bit more fruit. You don't have to do all or nothing. So in other words, if you are eating a little bit of meat or you are eating some dairy, again, you can start reducing those areas and just adding in some more of vegetables or fruits, or again, looking for different meal options such as chilies or tofu stir fry. So it's really, where you're at, what you're looking to do. You can start reducing in one area and start learning to introduce some of the new plant-based foods.
Perfect. So I'm seeing a few questions about dairy. So I think we should address that next, because I think dairy, some people don't know, is it healthy? Is it not healthy? So there's a question, do you believe that dairy products add to body inflammation? And I'm just going to pair it with, is there a health benefit to goat's milk over cow's milk? So maybe Caroline, you want to just elaborate on that and clarify the difference.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you. So the thing with dairy, it really depends. It really depends. And what happens is that there are some people that genetically have the gene where they don't have the lactose enzyme, so they become intolerant to the lactose. But that being said, in dairy, we have to understand that there's more than one protein. So the lactose is the carbohydrate protein, the carbohydrate molecule, and then there's the actual protein, which is casein. And in some cases, people are coming to me and saying, well, I still do lactose free, but I'm still feeling that there's kind of digestive issues happening. And it's because they're reacting to the casein. So yes, when you are reacting to the food, then there is an inflammation component that then happens. So what happens with goat milk is the protein in the goat milk is much smaller and easier to digest. So some people may actually get away with goat or sheep milk, while they'll react more to the cow's milk. Yeah, that's pretty, I hope I've been able to answer that question. I don't know if you wanted to add something, Nicole.
No, yeah, I think, cow's milk is a common allergen, so many people have difficult digesting it. And, goat milk, sheep milk, I find a lot of clients that I see, it's easier for them to tolerate it. So I think you pretty much said everything I was going to mention. So let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, I had a hysterectomy at 51 and went into menopause right away. Since then, I feel like my body has betrayed me and I can't get back on track. Is there anything you could suggest that would be a good jumpstart to help me? So maybe Marsha, you could answer this question.
Sure. Thanks, Nicole. So that's a great question, and I really commend the individual for sharing that, because menopause does bring many changes and challenges, and again, having been through it myself and working with many individuals. So really, there's many different approaches. Number one, as a holistic nutritionist, before even looking at nutrition and your food, you know, looking at understanding your gut health, as Caroline had been referring to. So gut health is important when it comes to menopause, because again, hormones and neurotransmitters, again, are made in our gut. So we need to look at gut health. How is your digestion? Looking at things such as sleep and stress can also have an impact on menopause and hormones, you know, whether it's visceral fat or it's cortisol. So there's many different areas. So number one, looking at the individual in a comprehensive approach. And then looking at food specifically, where what I would ask the individual is to fill out what we call a food diary, and looking at a few days worth of how you're eating, which is what we call your starting point, so your reference point. And then depending what that is, well, what I would do is, again, look at number one, what you're eating. So we would start looking at your macronutrients, again, time of day that you're eating, which can have an impact. You know, is intermittent fasting a concern, possibility? Are you eating after dinner? Are you snacking too much? And then again, obviously, portion sizes matter too. So we want to look at you as a whole. So again, underlying health issues, and again, looking specifically at what you're eating. It is challenging, but there are changes that can be done, even referring to things like understanding lower carbs and eating higher fats. I find many, women, and as we approach our 40s and 50s, we have to start looking again at food as food quality, and again, what might be some of these inflammatory factors as well that can also help you and your body adjust.
Perfect. So before I go to the next question, I do see some more questions just about dairy and osteoporosis and calcium. And I do want to mention that you can get a ton of calcium from vegetables that isn't dairy. So spinach is incredibly high in calcium, chia seeds, sesame seeds, nut butter. So it's important to know that you can get a lot of calcium from dairy, but you can also get it from plant-based sources. Okay, the next question we are going to ask, someone submitted, is, are you in favor of the low FODMAP diet when having bloating and pain after eating? So Caroline, maybe you want to answer this question?
Yeah, hi. So low FODMAP diet, I'm going to answer it very generally. If there's bloating, there's something happening, that's for sure. So you can try for short term a low FODMAP diet and see if there's benefits. I would still recommend that you go ahead and investigate exactly what's going on, because it's not a diet that you want to stay long term on, because you can then start suffering from nutrient deficiencies. And especially if you're not doing the diet properly and you're not making sure that you're getting all your nutrients. So what I like with the low FODMAP diet, it is a healing diet that we use commonly in clinic when we're dealing with certain symptoms of dysbiosis, but we always use it as a healing diet for a short-term period. And then once that happens, you then start reintroduction. And reintroduction is a really important piece of the puzzle also, because if you actually address the dysbiosis and everything that goes around with the dysbiosis and the root cause of the dysbiosis, then you should be able to reintroduce these foods that before were giving you bloating or gas. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Perfect. So we have time for one more question. And so I like this question because I've converted my whole family to start eating organic. So someone submitted, why is it better or maybe not to buy organic fruits and vegetables? And if there are any fruits or vegetables that we can still purchase outside of the organic category, what would they be? What are your opinions regarding food being nature's medicine? And in that regard, truly, how important is eating organic to maintain health? So maybe you both can kind of, maybe Marsha, you can talk about, maybe the dirty dozen, and then Caroline, you can talk about nature's medicine.
Okay, it is a really big topic. Lots of different research and really even different studies that come out year to year. I generally like to recommend, as you had mentioned, there's a great organization called the Environmental Working Group that puts out some good information every year put out what's called the daily, the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. So again, what that refers to is, again, the fruits and vegetables that are known to have the larger amounts of pesticides and fertilizer and synthetic fertilizers that we obviously want to avoid. And those are, you know, some things like spinach and strawberries and apples. So these are the ones, you know, depending what your budget is. And if you do want to, you know, buy organic or not, understand which ones are what we call the Dirty Dozen, and avoid those, number one. And then, you know, then you have all your other remaining fruits and vegetables that you can choose from. So again, understanding which ones we want to avoid, and that's in reference to the Dirty Dozen. And I don't know if Caroline wants to continue.
Thanks, Marsha. So on food as medicine, in everything that I do in my practice, it's always food first. So even when I do genetics consultation, we're always looking at genes, not as a single gene. And I just want to chime that in because people are looking at single genes and asking, genes work together. Everything works together, right? And it's always food first. So that's where my biggest belief, that's why I'm called the whole food apothecary, because I believe that in food pharmacy, I believe that your kitchen is your own medical cabinet. I believe that it starts with nutrition. And not to say that supplements are not sometimes necessary, and not to say that medications are not sometimes necessary. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there's a huge impact of food. So yes, I do believe that food is medicine.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. That was super helpful. And I hope everyone learned a lot today. And thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Nicole, Marsha, and Caroline, for such an interesting and educational experience. I know I'm going to be incorporating a lot of things into my daily life thanks to this wonderful webinar. I just want to say there are some more questions that I know were not responded to, but please, if you have more questions or your question wasn't answered, please feel free to email our panelists directly. Feel free to send them an email. Their addresses will be in the chat. Thank you to all our participants for joining us this evening. If you've already made a gift to this year to the emergency campaign, I'd like to thank you. If you've not yet done so, we encourage you to connect with us in the days ahead. We've added a link into the chat box. We know the pandemic has impacted all of us in so many ways. Any amount you can donate will make a difference. Before we close the presentation, I want to acknowledge there are many people who are suffering terribly from this crisis, whether facing physical health, mental health, or financial challenges. If you or someone you know needs help, please do not hesitate to reach out to us because we care. In the chat, you will see a hotline number. Please remember, we're here to support you in any way that we can. Thank you again for taking the time to join us. Please save the date for our next Health and Wellness webinar on July 7th at 8 p.m. when we'll be exploring mental health and anxiety. This brings us to the end of the webinar. Have a great evening and a wonderful weekend.